It's a big fucking club and you ain't in it. And I ain't either.
I'm white and I've got everything I need. No one clutches their purses when they're in a room alone with me. And I can drive through any neighborhood I please at any hour, and the police don't do a thing. So if I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I got everything I need. I'm a guy getting paid more than a girl with a degree. And I can walk down the streets after dark, no one wants to rape me. And I can get a girl pregnant and just as easily flee. Just like my straight white male dad did to me. So if I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need. I've got a pile of broken mirrors and I'm walking under ladders and I'm spilling tons of salt, but to me that doesn't matter, cause my skin and my gender and my orientation are the best things to have if you live in this nation. I recommend it highly. So if I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need. Shit's gonna work out for me, cause I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Intellectual Dollar Tree. We do this show live every Wednesday. Is it Wednesday? Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific, right here on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/Echoplex Media. This is a viewer and listener supported project. You know the drill. If you're on Twitch, bits, gift subs, on-screen celebrations, whatever the hell that is. Media Winch decided to do 2 of those last night, so celebrate on screen if you want. Also, you can just go to the website, echoplexmedia.com, click the support link at the top of the homepage, and find your favorite way there. And I'm Producer Dave. You can find me on Blue Sky at Plex Dave. Please follow me there. For now, I'm just mostly following everybody back if they look like a real person. So, it's been a while since we've, on the main pod, checked in on the guys at Triggernometry. And the quality of the ghouls they're having on seems to, I don't know, depending on how you're viewing it, the quality of the ghouls has either been increasing or decreasing. And in this case, they had Erik Prince on. If people don't know who Erik Prince is, look up Blackwater. Look up the security firm Blackwater. Erik Prince is a war criminal, in my opinion. And so they had a war criminal on, too. They're talking about war will never be the same. Erik Prince made sure of that by committing war crimes.
What is the state of the Western world and its defenses at the moment? How do you assess that?
I would say they're massively behind.
Behind who?
Revolution and war that's happened.
Fucking Jupiter?
The acceleration with extremely cheap guided weapons, whether it's a cheap drone, cheap missile, all the legacy systems are much less useful and largely just targets. So it's democratized precision strike to everyone. When there's troops in contact in a valley in Afghanistan and they have to call and talk to a lawyer 2,000 miles away for permission to drop a bomb, you're not serious about waging war.
What are troops doing in Afghanistan still?
No one's been held to account. Not one flag officer. All the super polished generals, which are now serving on boards and hedge funds and universities and all the rest.
This is rich from this guy. Yo. I don't want to get this up. The thing that Blackwater did in Iraq. Like, just look up Blackwater, Iraq, if you're unfamiliar. Fucking yikes. This motherfucker saying that nobody has been held accountable for what they're doing. I think he's saying they're being held accountable for not fucking killing enough people, though.
They all lost. They were entrusted with our troops' lives, with hundreds of billions of dollars, and they failed to deliver.
Erik, great to have you on the show.
Nice to be here.
Thanks for coming on. Listen, the first question we wanted to ask you is something that we in Europe are increasingly concerned about, which is
why weren't you tried at The Hague?
What's the state of the Western world and its defenses at the moment? How do you assess that?
I would say they're massively behind. The criticism that Trump had in the first administration of only 5 of the 28 NATO countries actually spending 2% of their GDP on defense is even more stark now, even though that number I think is 11 or 12 of the 28 are spending 2%. But the revolution and war that's happened in Ukraine, the acceleration with extremely cheap guided weapons, whether it's a cheap drone, cheap missile, long-range missiles, etc., everything, the explosion of that AI on the edge, on that individual device and its ability to guide targets has largely rendered billions, hundreds of billions of dollars of installed legacy military equipment largely useless, or really just targets.
So talk to us more about that, because the vast majority of the people who watch our show, and frankly us too, are not military experts. So you say
y'all have committed like crimes against comedy, but you aren't war criminals. That's true.
Way the drones we've seen, but tell us more about it. You say it's made things obsolete. Is a tank useless now?
So
is a tank useless? Well, I don't know. In what context?
US had against the Soviet Union in the 50s and 60s was nuclear strike. And then it became a big contest of who could throw more tons. And then it shifted towards precision delivery, precision weapons. And you saw that in the first Gulf War. You saw that in 2003 in the invasion of Iraq. Aircraft from 25,000 feet putting a bomb through the window of a building.
All right. Yeah, does it matter if it goes through a particular window? Now,
you can carry a small drone on your back. You can carry 6 of them that you can fly through the window of a building from 15 kilometers away. So it's democratized precision strike to everyone.
Yeah, but hold on. Yeah, you can fly the drone. You can carry 6 of them. Come on, man. Fucking explosives don't weigh nothing. What is he talking about?
And what that means is that anything that can be located on the battlefield, a tank, infantry on the move, a vehicle.
I'm sorry, a single person carrying 6 drones, those drones are going to be pretty small, and they're not going to, they're not going to fucking explode a tank.
Targetable by dozens of different weapon systems. So it's made survivability extremely difficult. And you can't almost carry enough armor to protect yourself. So you either have to deal with speed or extreme stealth again. So it's shifted. You said, is the tank obsolete? No, it's different because it's there are so many weapons that can be sent at it. And it's even made precision weapons much, much cheaper. For example, a Javelin missile, which the U.S. has provided to the Ukrainians, is $200,000 for the launcher, $150,000 a shot. The Ukrainians make I would argue, a better one for $29,000. But now you can take a small drone that can carry a charge about this size, and you put it together for a few $100s. So a $500 drone.
Right, but that much fucking, okay, like a fucking C4 or something? Like, what are you going to...
better software for it with a charge, and you're at $2,000, and you can kill a target out to 15 kilometers away. That's what I'm talking about, that revolution, that acceleration. So all the legacy systems are much less useful and largely just targets.
So powerful explosive the size of a cup of coffee is kind of heavy.
And the obvious question then is, who's got who's a step ahead on that stuff? Is it us? Is it the Chinese? Is it the Russians?
The Russians have certainly learned. If you shot at the Russians with artillery 2 years ago, it would take them an hour and a half to shoot back. And now they're shooting back in 2 to 3 minutes. So their communications, their radars, which literally look and spot the incoming round and do the telemetry back to its point of origin to shoot back on. They have, don't listen to the idiot U.S. politicians that say, oh, we're, wiping out the Russian army. No, the Russian army is much better
Well, we're not wiping out the Russian army. No, the Russia. Oh no! What is he talking? I mean, yeah, they're having a hard time invading their neighbor, their much smaller neighbor.
More lethal today than it was 2 years ago. The Ukrainians have also learned and had to survive, but now it's really a battle of it's a war of attrition, and math matters. And the fact that the Russians can throw more bodies, and will do a general mobilization, is a big problem for the Ukrainians.
But I mean, on a technological level, in terms of the technology, the drones, the AI, the software, is the West, have we got the good stuff, or is it other people have got the good stuff?
China has certainly become a significant supplier of the Russian war machine, of the components to make up those drones, of the propellants needed to make.
Yeah, but fucking the components to make fucking. I'd be shocked if none of the components in any of the weapons that the United States is making are from China.
I mean, look, the war has largely not frozen, but it's really more of a trench warfare kind of thing, because both sides have so much precision weaponry that any breakthrough can immediately be targeted by that many more systems. Now you can even have drones that will deliver landmines ahead of a convoy of tanks. The advantage the Chinese have is an enormous industrial base. Okay, I think it's important for the American audience to remember. We think, wow, we won the war in World War II. No, we lost 250,000 men in the European theater of operations. 250,000. The Russians lost 22 million.
Yeah. Okay. So fuck yeah. The Russians absolutely won the war in Europe. Yeah. The Soviet Union won the war in Europe.
In Morocco and Tunisia, the Russians had erased 800,000 men from the German order of battle at Stalingrad, and they lost 1.2 million doing that. But what made it possible for the Russians to win was to mechanize their forces, and that came from 600,000 vehicles from Detroit.
Yes.
And thousands of aircraft and ships and logistics supply. The U.S. industrial base is a hollow fraction of what it was back then. And that's where the biggest, most obvious deficit is now.
So that would suggest that what we're in now is a world where, almost like in World War II, where we have these superpowers who are competing with one another for dominance.
Fucking John Oliver is so fucking dumb. Almost like in World War II, where there's superpowers competing with each other. What the fuck is he talking about? Before World War II, there was really no what we would call a superpower now.
Would you refute that?
Look, there's always been a competition for land, for trade dominance. That's as old as people throwing sticks at each other. Mm-hmm. But the free trade agreements that hollowed out the U.S. industrial base and moved that industrial base to China has certainly shown to not be an advantage to the United States or for Europe, for that matter. And in both cases, the military-industrial complex in the United States and in Europe has not done any favors by always trying to offer the most exquisite, most expensive, unique thing instead of the practical thing that actually lasts and works in battle. And so that balance is very skewed. Like I talk about the $150,000 Raytheon missile versus the $29,000 Ukrainian missile. Ultimately, war is a battle of math as well, and what's affordable. And the U.S. literally shoots itself out of missiles in the first 10 days maximum of full-on state-on-state combat. And that's just an asinine position to be in.
Dude, this guy believes in 10 days of like World War III. I fucking, if what we would describe as World War III, like everybody going at, I fucking 10 hours, friend, and we're all fucking vapor. I don't know what this guy's talking about, dude. As soon as somebody starts feeling like they're losing, they're like, I'm gonna press this button, fuck y'all. And when it's over.
Part of that is because, as with the NHS in this country, where they're overcharged for basic products that private companies simply wouldn't countenance paying that amount of money for. So the U.S. Army gets.
Is that true that the NHS like grossly overpays for like medical supplies? I think this is probably bullshit. laughs in American healthcare bill.
Charge continually for basic things.
It comes down to a lack of competition amongst the supply base. So in the 90s, the U.S. or the Clinton administration kind of pushed a consolidation of our defense industry from about 100 defense contractors down to 5. And so that 5 for the last few decades has behaved like a cartel with less and less competition, kind of a clubby approach to bidding, and with the demonstrable failed results. And so antitrust that works across all industries, whether it's in rail.
Oh yeah, that's what's going to happen. The fucking Trump administration is going to go trust busting on fucking Lockheed Martin. Get the fuck out of here. Shut the fuck up. Nobody, even fucking Bernie Sanders probably wouldn't be trying to do that. Get the fuck out of here.
Banking certainly has to apply in defense as well. So a breakup of those big bloated companies, and I would say even by leapfrog that, there's a lot of great innovation happening at the small and mid-sized level. Award more contracts to them and let those guys build and run hard to catch up. Because
but like the problem is like the demands, like, and it's not the, I don't know, like the fucking, for a while it's been like this too. Like it seems like the United States has wanted a fucking aircraft just to show off to everybody, right? Like that stupid, what was it, the YF-22 or whatever? Like fucking, like, okay, fucking whatever. It's hard to see on radar, and it fucking, I don't know what it does. It fucking flies better. But it's so fucking expensive. Like, I don't know, like if that's what the fucking government was, if the sort of capabilities are like extreme and the government's asking for it, no like plucky mid-sized defense contractor is going to be able to provide that fucking plane.
big and bloated is it embodies all the bad habits, and it'll be hard for them to unlearn that.
And that puts the US in a very fragile position, because the one thing you don't want to be, well, you don't want anything to be big and bloated, let's be honest, but above all, you don't want your military to be big and bloated.
Motherfucker, dude, Don Oliver, the fucking absolute fucking stupidity of this guy just fucking blows my mind. It just blows my mind. He's like, oh, well, the U.S., you know what they don't want is a bloated military fucking budget. It's shut the fuck up. Of course the U.S. wants that. It's a fucking, first of all, it's like a jobs program. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, that's exactly what the U.S. wants. What the shit is this guy talking about?
Because it needs to be nimble and agile, particularly when you're fighting in territories which are not your own.
Particularly when the most expensive weapon system in human history, the F-35, has an operational readiness rate of 29%. 29%. Come on. That's bad. Because you have so many sole-sourced...
Can I just stop you there? What does that mean? Because there's people going to be listening to us who are going, that sounds terrible.
Out of 100 aircraft, if I say...
Don Oliver literally just fucking said to this guy, what does 29% mean? What does it mean when 29% of them are operationally ready? Well, it sounds to me like if the shit goes off, only 29% of these fucking things that we built are going to be able to go fucking do the shit. I mean, like, why do you... fucking, come on, man. How do you get to be this stupid?
If we're going to war right now, 29 are ready to fly at fully mission capable.
But why is that?
Maintenance, vendor
issues. There could be some way in which, because we're not about to crack off in a giant war, it isn't the best idea in the world to keep them all 100% ready to go fight World War III. I don't know, but if you're never using them for anything other than like the fucking Fleet Week or whatever, and then and it's like there's something about them that is kind of expensive to maintain, then yeah, you don't keep them all fucking war ready. You probably, I would imagine, now I don't know, I would imagine that you keep them so that they could be war ready in a couple days.
Software issues, over sophistication, and just they've had some that they produced that they couldn't do software upgrades to, so the military is not even taking them, and they're parked forever. It's like Frankenstein's monster, because they expected this aircraft to not just do Air Force air superiority, but also to have it land in an aircraft carrier. And the Marine Corps wanted one that could take off and land vertically. So they expect all this out of one aircraft, and it's an impossibly overpriced mess. Again, the most expensive weapon system in human history, which is woefully deficient.
And when you look at other armies, how does the US therefore compare to other armies? We've talked about the Russians. How much do we actually know about the Chinese army? Do they have the same problems? Because I imagine they must have the same challenges when you look at...
No, dude, fucking, if the shit cracks off, China's gonna be like, oh, fuck, man, I hope nobody attacks us, because we could just sell shit. We could sell shit to everybody right now. China's gonna be the fucking supplier for World War III. That's what I'd do if I was them. I'd be like, fuck, man, listen, we gotta do everything we can to not take a side and just sell shit to people. Because again, like, we talk about this a lot. Some people think like, oh, the United States adversaries or whatever are fucking crazy. No, they're just us, but in China.
Involved in it, etc.
It's a military consists of multiple things. It's not just the hardware that's available, the quantity of hardware, but it's also the hardware, right, of the people. Right? There's an old saying, it's not the steel in the ships that makes a great navy; it's the steel in the men. It might have been a British admiral that said that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but that's some fucking old-timey bullshit about. Get out of here.
China has certainly, on the industrial base side, they have a lot of supply. They can drive that cost very low. They do have quality problems, okay, legitimately. They have a leadership problem, even as bad as the U.S. military's leadership problem. We have them because we have bureaucrats that have been promoted, not warriors. The Chinese have a problem of corruption of those senior military positions are paid for, okay, through graft. And once they're in that position, they kind of harvest the fruits of their position.
Oh yeah, nobody in the fucking U.S. ever fucking does that. So the thing, and I'm not like a fucking expert on this, but I have a feeling that the military industrial complex in China is probably so deeply interwoven with the military in China that you can't even tell them apart. Like here in America, like I understand that the connections are very tight and that there's ways in which that there's probably like revolving doors that we don't understand going from the military to, or that I'm not aware of, go from the military to the military industrial complex. But at least here we pretend that it's not the same thing.
So it's not necessarily, you want the very best, right? A military should be about lethality and merit, nothing else. And the U.S. military has drifted from that course. And I think Pete Hegseth is...
Oh no, here we go. Lethality and merit. Now they're going to be like, but they let the fucking transes in the military. We're like straight away. We're real close to this guy being like, oh, they let the women and folks in there.
Taken back in the right direction of lethality and merit. China has its corruption problems. But ultimately, I think military, when you look through history, generals make good decisions, but it's the sergeants and the staff officers that carry it out at the bleeding edge of battle.
But yeah, it's called a bureaucracy.
And in the West, the empowering and the decision making that an NCO will make is very, very good. It's culturally good in the West because they'll make a decision, they'll take a risk and go left, even though somebody might be saying go right, because they're applying common sense with the most information.
Wait a minute, no, but this guy just said that like we have all this fucking surveillance technology and like anybody can fly a drone and do surveillance or drop a coffee-sized bomb on something. If your intelligence says to go right, it's not like ye olde times where you sent out a scouting crew in a Jeep. You're getting fucking information from satellites, you're getting information from like all kind of places. And if you don't do what that information says that you should do, you're probably just stupid and arrogant.
The very, very top-down driven decision-making of Chinese culture is troubling in an extremely fast-paced modern war.
And we saw that in the Russia-Ukraine war as well, initially, particularly when the Russians were having a lot of problems organizing things, supply lines, etc. I'd be curious to ask you, you mentioned lethality and merit. We talk a lot about, wokeness and...
I knew it was coming, everybody. I fucking called that. I was like, oh, it's going to be there. Did you know that they have they have people in the military that I would think are fat?
show. We have done, at least in the past. You know, a lot of people in our space who are not military experts will say, well, obviously, you know, if you have DI in armed forces, they're not going to be good. Is that wrong?
Again, if you focus on who, I don't care which bathroom somebody uses
Sure.
or who they sleep with, how well can they drive that ship, fight that ship?
How about the fucking computer drives the ship?
Combat operations from their aircraft or lead a small unit in battle. That's what matters. It's not what their skin color is. It's not an important of
this guy, like, do you think it's like Band of Brothers out there and shit? What the fuck, man?
the right people of the right ethnic diversity having positions of authority. No, I want decisive, bold leaders, killers in those positions to make those decisions.
I'm sorry, decisive and bold.
Modern warfare happens.
What if you're not super decisive at all times and you listen to others?
Faster pace.
Well, no, that totally makes sense. So I guess what I was asking really is, do you feel
like even this guy isn't going to take the bait, right? Even this fucking war criminal ass fucking ghoul isn't going to take this fucking bait here from this guy. He's just not going to do it, I don't think. Constantine wants him to just fucking straight up be like, well, yeah, they keep promoting black folks, and I don't know why they're doing that.
to the new administration, the quality of the armed forces was degraded by this process of trying to make it inclusive,
especially the senior leadership. Yes.
Wait, what? Who says? Especially the senior leadership. The senior leadership just like it's like an office job.
Completely directed leadership when they're spending more and more time doing diversity training instead of marksmanship, land nav, gunnery.
Yeah, this guy totally thinks we're going to go, World War III is going to break out and it's going to be like that fucking shit that everybody watches at Christmas, that Band of Brothers thing. World War III, I hope it ain't coming, man, because I live in the fucking Bay Area. The fucking all out fucking like large scale inter-nation state war happens, I'm fucking vaporized. Well, maybe I'll be close enough to where it lands that I won't feel it, but I'll still know it's coming, or maybe I won't. This shit, like, no, dude, get the fuck out of here, dude. This is not how this is going to play out.
Are simple examples of U.S. Navy in the 2016, 17, 18 period killed more sailors by ship collisions, by U.S. warships in the South China Sea or off Singapore running into commercial vessels. Okay, there's 3 collisions, 2 of them with multiple fatalities.
Well, right, but what do you mean? Ships collide sometimes, and we don't know. Was it the military ship's fault? Was it the commercial vessel's fault? You may never know, because fucking that's some shit that they're probably not going to tell you.
$1 billion Burke class destroyer running into a commercial ship in a seaway. Okay, now this is something with a $500,000 combat search and combat information center to fight the ship and organize it, and yet you can't see a 50,000-ton cargo ship coming at you at 25 knots. That's the kind of stupidity. The Bonhomme Richard, which was a helicopter carrier that started on fire while it's in port in San Diego, it took them an hour and a half to get first water fighting the fire in the bowels of the ship. The entire ship had to be written off. So it's
I think fighting a fire on you'd think that because you're surrounded by water, fighting a fire on a military boat would be easy. But I bet fighting a fire on a boat is fucking hard. I bet it's harder than fighting a fire not on a boat, because everything on a boat is harder than doing it not on a boat, because you're in the fucking ocean. And so you can't just be like, hold on, let me stand outside of the boat and shoot. No.
Oh shit moment. The Navy just in December, operations in the Red Sea. They're doing a lot of sorties because they're shooting down all these incoming drones at the ships. And a U.S. cruiser fires multiple missiles, shoots down one aircraft, shoots a second missile at another aircraft. He goes to burners and gets away. But yeah, they literally shot down 2 of their own, shot down one, almost shot down a second. And these were aircraft that were not 30 and 50 miles out on patrol. They were in the traffic pattern on final to land on the carrier. These are the
Yeah, but these are called mistakes.
That's the kind of oh shit moments you cannot have.
But are you right to connect this? Look, I hate DI as much as anybody, but
Wait, no, what are you saying? Are you right to connect this? Constantine, you were begging him to connect this to fucking diversity. It was your own show. You were the one who said it. You were like begging this guy to do that.
Are you right to connect this to stuff like that? Or is this just something that's kind of statistically speaking in a huge organization, someone is always going to wreck something?
For example, when those two ships, when they had the ship collisions, they had multiple cases of crewmen, instead of manning their damage control station, were cowering in the corners crying.
What?
That doesn't sound like that's what
That's
they should be doing.
Okay.
Right.
The Navy had to change boot camp to do resiliency training after that to try to toughen them up. So that's a
Wait, what?
cultural problem. And I would say that derives from either hiring the wrong people or providing the wrong training to say, hey.
No, it's because they can't recruit anybody because nobody wants to join the fucking military after fucking Iraq and Afghanistan.
Hey folks, we are not a cruise ship, we're a fighting ship. And we're here to prepare to wage naval combat, which is brutal and fiery and violent. And if you're not training with that mentality, you're in the wrong business.
That. I mean, look.
Like, is this true? Like, there's no way. How do you fact check this? Because the military isn't going to put out a press release that was like, well, these ships collided, and then the brave men and women of the fucking U.S. Navy were actually crying in a corner. Right? This doesn't sound like really something that the military would publicize.
Well, I'm not a military person in any shape or form, but to me, isn't that just common sense, Erik?
Well, your audience may not be military experts, but I hope they're common sense experts. So there's a lot of this that comes down to common sense.
But common sense doesn't mean anything. Common sense just means the thing that I believe most times for most people. Look, in a crisis situation, whatever it is, whatever your area of expertise is, that shouldn't be your reaction, whether you're a medic, whether you're a firefighter, whether you're an ambulance, whatever you may be. But for the military, I mean, that's unforgivable. I wouldn't expect that of an actor. Yeah, I'm not making it up. Yeah, somebody in chat brought something up that you're like mixing like people just out of high school with like these situations, right? That they're like 18, 19, some of them. And like, I don't know, nothing prepares you for a fucking shipwreck. So maybe you become a shipwreck in your own mind when that shit happens. Yeah, absolutely.
I wish I was.
And that worries me because that means that when you look at these superpowers like the Russians and the Chinese, I don't know, and maybe I don't know enough. I can't imagine a situation like that happening and Chinese soldiers having a meltdown.
Why? It's this idea again that like the Chinese, that they're like fucking, I don't know, like some kind of evil super soldiers and shit. Yo, they're just us, but Chinese. They're not different than us. They're fucking people.
And starting to cry.
It's a culture of too many training timeouts where they say, oh, this is too intense for me and I have to take a break from training. No, it's you don't get to hit pause in a firefight.
Do you feel that that's about to change, all of this?
I think so. I think Pete Hegseth as SecDef is setting the right tone, and hopefully there's
he's like a drunk and like a womanizer and not very trustworthy and probably generally going to be bad for the morale of the United States military.
People that don't belong in the positions that they are anymore.
At Triggernometry, we value transparency and expertise and protect your savings and
no. If you were being transparent about this, fucking Constantine, you would say this is one of those programs where you send them money and then they don't send you any gold.
One word.
The gold IRA. You're just buying the idea of gold.
And take the first step towards securing your financial future today.
Wonder how many of them are fucking Ponzi schemes.
Well, do you know what I found weird about this whole thing, Erik, is, and you emphasize that it's senior leaders in particular that are causing all of this. And I just think, like, how did we get to, you look at the history of America's military, from the generals that you had at the time of World War II.
Yeah, but those people are fucking, you made movies out of them and shit, dude. Fuck you. Like, those people were, like, the version that you have of that shit in your head is fake. right? People don't know actual shit about General Patton. What they've seen is the movie Patton. And that's a fictionalized account of General Patton. It is not a documentary.
To generals who are now pushing DEI and talking about, white supremacy and all of this stuff that we've seen. How did that happen?
When
Wait, no. There's a friend for a very long time. The military has not wanted to recruit white supremacists. This isn't new. The military does not want fucking white supremacists in their ranks because it like the people, everybody else is gonna hate the fucking white supremacists.
over as chief of staff in 1939, September. Okay, the same day that the Germans rolled into Poland, he took over the U.S. military, U.S. Army, and he fired dozens of generals and colonels because they were ready to fight the last war. They were still wanting to fight trench warfare of World War I. And he prepared. He kind of felt the fight coming, and he made the moves to get it ready. The naval command that started, where we're in charge of the...
I wonder if those people got fired because they were sympathetic to the fucking Germans. There were a lot more people in America before the country entered World War II, and probably while the country was in World War II, who were sympathetic with the fucking Germans. Not so much the Japanese because they weren't white, right? But there were there were a lot more people in this country sympathetic with the Germans in World War II. Not only before the United States entered the war, but even while the United States was in the war. Than people want to talk about. There were whole fucking rallies and shit about it. There were like whole fucking political movements. What was that guy's name? The fucking famous airplane pilot. What the fuck was his name? Was it? I forget his name now. But he was like sympathetic to the Germans.
War II were not the ones that were in charge. We started the global war on terror in 2001, and never was there a house cleaning. So we had peacetime generals, flag officers, and all of those people stayed in.
Yeah, it was Charles Lindbergh. Like Charles Lindbergh was like tried to run for president and shit, dude.
Ice cream cone, because it was a managed war. I would say a conflict of convenience, not of national survival. And so no one ever said, whoa, wait a minute. I want only the most lethal, effective.
We should talk about this guy's contractor, their time in what we would euphemistically call the war on terror.
Commanders in this role, and it all became a promotion game. I mean, at some point, the U.S. in Iraq had 93 flag officers on the ground. 93, don't imagine. Just their staff and their personal support and all the rest meant they had an entire brigade of staff support supporting 93 flag officers in Iraq alone.
So it becomes very bloated, like the hardware side of things.
Horrifically bloated. As overpriced and bloated and obese as the defense industry is, selling highly overpriced products, you can see the same thing in the Flag Officer Corps.
And there's
just too many of them.
Is that why, we had Nick Freitas on the show a while back.
Who the fuck is that?
And one of the things he talked about, and we've heard this from a lot of people anecdotally, privately, as well as on the show, a lot of people lower down the ranks who wanted to serve their country, who wanted to do that job, leaving after a while because they just got tired of all the BS that they had.
The warriors leave. And
people did their tour and wanted out. Yeah. They're like, oh, I'll invest. Oh, you're going to pay for my education and I get a pension and I get health care? Yeah, I'm out. Fuck this. Yeah. Tons of people do that. If you remember during the war on terror, like hell, people were mad because they were told one thing about how long that their tour would be, and then they were forced to like continue. Yeah, hell, people wanted out because it's a problem at the recruiting station. Honestly, is that fucking people that join the military get sold this bill of goods about how they're gonna, you're gonna do fucking 5 years or 6 years or whatever. I don't know what number it is, but it's up some number of years, and then we're gonna get you out. You're gonna get a big old bonus. You go buy a fucking Mustang or whatever it is. You can go to university and but that's the problem at the recruiting station. It's because you're lying to these people, and so they fucking figure out that you lied to them, and now they want out, no matter how competent they are.
And another bad case, right? So that you get a high utilization rate during the Iraq-Afghanistan conflicts. And normally the U.S. Army promotes 75% of captains to majors, right, from 03 to 04. For a while, they were promoting 95% or 99%.
Because everyone was leaving above them, right?
Sure. And so when you don't cut out your bottom,
because of the fucking because the fucking people, the people that reach the major, they're connected politically and they have the ability to go make more money somewhere else. Times change.
The turds eventually float to the top. And so do that systemically across the organization for 15, 20 years. That's what we have now. Well, so again, there's some great people that are serving, but there's a lot of not great ones. And so it is time to winnow that down. We have as many flag officers now in the military as we did in World War II, actually more. In World War II, we had 14 million men under arms in America. Now we have less than 1.4, but the same amount of flag officers in an era of.
Well, yeah, because more of our stuff is, because this isn't Band of Brothers. There's not going to be it's not going to be like infantry, there's going to be like ground forces and stuff if World War III cracks off. Well, I don't know. It depends on how it plays out, right? Could be over in fucking 6 hours. But this guy's like stuck in this like old version. It seems like this old version of like, oh, it's a fucking thing for manly men who can fucking get their leg blown off and keep going. It's like, well, that's not really how this is. That's not really what happens anymore.
Mails, right? Instant communication.
Not that nobody gets injured.
Able to run a flat and fast organization. We have bloat upon bloat upon bloat. And that is the winnowing, the rationalization that I hope Secretary Hegseth does and cuts our flag officers down probably by 70, 80% is what the number that should come off.
And
yeah, but all those people who reach that rank of flight officer, where are they going to go? What are you're just going to fire them?
The war in Iraq affected the morale of people in the army and people especially looking to join.
Oh, don't talk to him about the war in Iraq, friend.
Because I remember in 2003, there were marches on the streets of the UK and people were saying this is an unjust war, which is then later proven to be true. So how many people were actually going, I don't want to join the army because we were lied to back then. How can I trust the information that I'm being given now?
I wouldn't say that's not even the issue. The issue is
wait, why?
Is how once you're there, how it's conducted. And when you have politicians, so we really allowed lawyers to infiltrate the military, to infect it, almost like Zompolits, like the political commissars were in the Soviet Union. Okay, in a Soviet naval ship, squadron, ground combat unit, next to the commander would be the Zompolit, the political officer who would enforce the will of the party. We've allowed lawyers to second guess and to undercut command authority at every level. And so the issue is not what happened 20 years ago when this war started. It's how are we getting it on and how are we fighting and how are we allowed to fight? And when it's constant half measures, when there's troops in contact in a valley in Afghanistan and they have to call and talk to a lawyer 2,000 miles away in an air-conditioned cubicle in Doha, right, at Al Udeid Air Force Base where the CENTCOM headquarters are, for permission to drop a bomb, you're not serious about waging war. And it undervalues the value of the troops because it's more important for some lawyer and their ass covering about whether you can drop a bomb or not. That's the thing that really pisses troops off.
Because it also compromises.
Yeah, but most of them aren't like on the front lines calling in fucking bombings because they found the bad guys in building 7, like we'll say building 4 of fucking some compound that they're approaching. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Because when you're
unequivocally, when you over lawyer and you prevent ground commanders from seeing through and winning fights decisively, you get half-assed managed conflict for 20 years in Afghanistan that ends in a complete blowout, debacle, collapse, embarrassment. And again, no one's been held to account. Not one flag officer. All the super polished generals, which are now serving on boards and hedge funds and universities and all the rest, they all lost. They were entrusted with our troops' lives, with hundreds of billions of dollars, and they failed to deliver. And there's been no accountability for that. The only guy that's
This motherfucker, this guy talking about nobody else being held accountable. I said it earlier in the show. I would just encourage you. Everybody look up Blackwater. Just look up Blackwater. You don't have to look up shit. You don't have to put any other keyword. Look up Blackwater. There's a reason that he doesn't call his new fucking consulting firm Blackwater. The reason he fucking rebranded what he does. For a while he was calling it Academy, ACADMI.
that's been held accountable for Afghanistan is Lieutenant Colonel Stu Scheller. Why? Because he had the audacity on camera in a uniform to call bullshit on the officers to say, hey, because at that point he was the head of the infantry training school at Quantico for officers. And he said, if some of my students go to the range and they lose their M16, they're going to be punished. Who's punished for losing and for completely effing up in Afghanistan? And they drove him out of the military for that.
I mean,
With no, like 18 or 19 years, no pension. Again, so yeah, there's some raw ire amongst the veterans, and I have suffered this much compared to guys who have suffered.
Yeah, because you ran a private fucking security firm that committed war crimes, and then fucking the members of your team got fucking burned to death and strung up by the fucking locals. Like, look, friends, look this story up. This guy should fucking not be a free person. This person is like, this is one of the worst people who walks this planet right now.
Their mental health, their physical health, lost limbs, eyes, families, brain health. It's ridiculous that we have no accountability, and that's ultimately what rots the military. More than overpriced weapons and stupidity, it is a lack of confidence in the leadership to A, take care of their people, and B, to get the job done that they were hired to do.
because it's about priorities. And if your priority is covering your ass, then your
You're going to
priority
cover your ass to the detriment of your people.
Yeah. Then why should people?
I think this is all a euphemism for not being willing to commit war crimes. I think this is all just fucking full on euphemistic, not being willing to, not wanting to murder civilians, not wanting to engage in torture. I think that's all this is. They're just not saying what they mean. I think at least Erik Prince, he just means that like people are afraid to commit war crimes. He wasn't.
Because that's the number one thing. It doesn't matter with any type of leader. If you can't trust your leader, if you don't think that your leader has your best interests at heart, why are you going to listen to them? And especially, why are you going to follow them into battle?
And why should they be trusted on the boards that they sit now? Because they fucked up what they did before.
Well, Erik, it's one of the things that you have obviously particular expertise in is private military companies.
Uh-oh. Is Constantine going to buck and ask him? I don't think he's going to do it. And Non-Oliver has no idea what happened.
And this has become a thing that we see in Ukraine with the Wagner Group. And I know you've talked at some points about the ability of these units to do a different job or to do the same job as the main military better. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Ooh, tell us about the time. Tell us about the time I was talking about.
By the way, I noticed you tense up as I asked the question. Did I say?
Oh, God, no.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Constantine knows what question he's not supposed to ask. And he fucking... This is gross. Constantine knows exactly what question he's not supposed to ask here, and he's not going to ask it.
No, I lifted too hard this morning.
That is the most alpha answer to that question, isn't it?
Do you even lift, bro?
That's the truth.
Yeah, I just pulled a muscle shooting a massive grenade launcher. Yeah.
Look, the private sector has been, I think it's a big misnomer for people to think that PMCs are some new invention. They're literally as old as warfare. If you were laying siege to a city in Eastern Europe 1,000 years ago, and you needed
You hired fucking mercenaries, yeah.
battering ram, those were contracted professionals, those engineers.
Right.
Contracted
history, whether it's the-
fucking contracted professionals. Shut the fuck up. You hired a bunch of goons.
Artillerymen, the other specialists that gets pulled into it. As you get to, so I think a pendulum swinging back towards more use of private military contractors is probably more along the historical norm, right? When America was fighting for its independence, 9 out of 10 ships taken in the American Revolution were taken by privateers. private ship, private crew.
But that was but that was the American Revolution. Friend, that was a while ago.
It was such a thing that it's actually written into the U.S. Constitution. Before it even talks about Congress raising an army or a navy, it talks about a letter of marque and reprisal. So there's even talk of bringing back the letter of marque as a way to go after cartels in the physical world or in the cyber world. So the idea of private organizations that can organize, and I guess an even simpler example would be what Elon Musk has done in revolutionizing space launch. If you try to do that only...
man, don't give him no ideas, dude. Elon Musk, imagine Elon Musk puts together it's like private military. He's like, well, I don't know, they're good at Call of Duty. Oh no. I can just send a bunch of fucking gooners and incels to die somewhere because they fucking has them convinced that because they could fucking no scope kill somebody in a video game that they should just go out there and fucking blat fucking highly trained soldiers from other countries. Oh, it's fucking dark, but it's kind of funny.
Government entity was constantly beating his head against the wall against bureaucracy and nonsense, and he said, look, we're gonna lower the cost of launch by 1,000-fold, and he's doing it.
So lower the cost by 1,000-fold. Does he mean we're going to make it 1/1000th as expensive? I don't think that's happened yet.
An era of vastly quick evolving technology. The private sector is about the only thing that can keep up at that pace of advance. And so skilled people that can organize the right people with the right mindset, the right incentives, with the right equipment, you'll find that more and more happening. You could even say, even in Ukraine, like the one smart thing that Zelensky did the whole war was he opened up the armories when the Russian invasion happened. So people could go grab an anti-tank missile, RPG, or whatever, and they innovated. And that's who really did.
They innovated? What do you mean they innovated? No, they were like, I can either run or I can stay and fight. That is not innovation. That is fight or flight. That is like our most base instinct.
Drones with the small charges that they just figured out of necessity. What you'll see, I think, going forward, you see a lot of countries that want investment in struggling parts of the world, and people are reluctant to do so because there's no security that goes with it.
Also, like this is all well and good until like everybody remember Wagner in Russia. At one point, they're like, well, I don't know. What if we turn around and go the other way? And they seemed like maybe they were going to try to do a coup. Does anybody remember when it looked like that was going to happen for a second? Fucking yikes.
More and more a resource investment or an infrastructure investment that comes with its own almost attached PMC, which is largely, it's not all expats. There's a few expats, largely governing, managing local forces to secure that capability. Almost the same way, the first presence of Britain in the United States, the Massachusetts Bay, Jamestown, Plymouth companies were listed on the City of London Exchange. They hired people like John Smith and Miles Standish, former professional British officers that joined onto these companies and built this trading presence colony. I mean, the ones in...
Yeah, but then some of you dumb fucks, some of those people turned on the British. Like, what the fuck? So those people turned coat, friend. What the fuck is this guy doesn't know anything.
There to harvest tall trees for masts for Her Majesty's ships. So this is a reversion to what the historical norm is. After the kind of all government all the time approach after World War II for that 50 years, you're seeing a swing back towards a lot more private sector participation, which, like I said, goes back a couple thousand years.
Mm-hmm. And can you give us some examples? I mean, you talk about infrastructure of situations where you really would want a private military company involved versus the...
well, if you would like to do a war crime on a civilian population.
Trying to do it in a kind of...
The simplest thing is a PMC can organize much smaller footprint and significantly cheaper. Probably at 10% or less the cost structure of what a military can. And I'll just give a simple example of a place that we took over in the Blackwater days. It was a...
Ooh, Ooh, he's probably not going to give that example. Is he going to talk about the place they took over and fucking then a few of their people were burned alive and hung as trophies after what they did to the civilian population there? He's probably not talking about that particular incident. If I were him, I certainly wouldn't. But I don't know. These fucking ghouls are pretty ballsy. Maybe he is going to talk about that.
A remote secure, not a remote base that had to be secure in a very weird place. And we replaced 166 soldiers with 25 of our guys. Okay. The Army had a 28-man rifle platoon, but they had to send 138 support people to support 28. I sent 25 guys, and 5 of the guys were dual-hatted to keep the water, the power, the sanitation, the food, and the vehicles running, and it all just worked. And that's a very simple thing.
Wait, but after the U.S. military was there, so I'm guessing what happened here was after the U.S. military took out whatever. This is Iraq. Too. Was this Iraq or Afghanistan? There wasn't like an advanced military in either of these places.
Private organization has to know what its costs are. You're doing a firm fixed price versus the military. When everything is a free good, you tend to use a lot more free goods until the taxpayers get the bill and we realize it's really not so free.
Is the danger with this, obviously there was a controversy with Blackwater in Iraq.
Sure.
But also
a controversy.
you see it with the Wagner group in Ukraine, where Yevgeny Prigozhin, the late Yevgeny Prigozhin, really started to feel pretty powerful. And, guys who have private armies get a sort of sense of themselves as potential political players and start to mess around. Is there, what are the trade-offs of this reversion to what you call the norm?
Well, when countries or companies hire this capability, they're doing a defined mission, and I would say it's much cheaper. It doesn't have the long-term cost and insurance and retirements that.
Oh no, sure. See, there we go. That's where all the insurance, the retirement.
Of course, you have to operate under some countries' letter of the law, and
or not.
Argue that people can complain about PMCs not adhering to the law, but you could also say, well, M23 or any of the 130 different resource gangs that are operating completely without abandon. I mean, 80% of the women in Eastern DRC are raped. Okay, so people can complain about a private military company being out of control. Well, I would say sending proven people that have served well in a real military with real discipline and real honor before, sending them to do a job is a better predictor of good behavior and future performance than allowing the status quo of total insanity and meltdown when you have 80% rape from 130 different resource gangs and a nation state sponsoring an attack like Rwanda having invaded the DRC.
Wait, what?
In Haiti, where you have gangs controlling about 90% of the terrain of Port-au-Prince, where not just gangs, they're cannibals. So
cannibals.
You have an entire country of 12 million literally held hostage by
cannibals,
completely drugged out psychopaths.
Oh, get the fuck out of here. This guy may as well just be like, oh, hell, witch doctors there. Fuck you.
A lot of countries that deserve better. And I think the space created, the last 50 years, you've seen the U.S. government with USAID spending wildly and saying, oh, yeah, we got this and we can manage this and we're great at it. Clearly, they're not. And
wait, because fucking apartheid Clyde said so? So I don't think they understand, like, sometimes these payments that USAID was giving that were supposed to be for, like, fucking aid. Nah, friend, they were bribing fucking officials in other countries. They just had to have a cover story. This is how soft power works. Like, these they don't have any idea what's going on.
Trump clip their wings on that, and I think you'll see, again, a reversion to actual private sector efficiency and accountability. And if people don't like that, they'll change vendors. They'll find a different solution. But the all government all the time solution has demonstrably failed.
Thanks to today's sponsor, Venice. Have you you ever wondered what Chat GPT and Claude are doing with your conversation? Click every China.
Venice AQ doesn't.
They're taking money from some fucking shitty AI company. Private and uncensored AI.
Is Venice.ai.
That means it'll make you some CSAM if you want it.
Back to the show.
Eric, is there a danger that countries use private military companies when they want to do certain activities, tasks, missions that they don't want to associate it with their military?
That's actually this guy's specialty, not Oliver. You accidentally asked the right question.
So, for instance, China would hire a private military company to go somewhere in South America or Africa to take out a hit against a group of people, which they know is illegal, but it can't be traced back to their military.
Well, effectively, China did that in the last Mexican election cycle.
Wait, what?
There was 37 political candidates assassinated in Mexico.
Where's the evidence that fucking the Chinese government hired private military contracts to execute the fucking candidates in Mexico?
By the cartels, and they were all right of center candidates. So the same China that's been pushing fentanyl precursors into Mexico, into Venezuela, now fabricating
fentanyl precursors. I don't even know what that means. That could be stuff that has fucking 500 different uses.
Mexico, to make sure that the political scene stayed friendly to the Chinese Communist Party, they whacked that many political candidates. Mm-hmm. So,
I fucking get the fuck out of it. No, dude. No, dude. This has got to be bullshit.
Blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. Mm-hmm. Was it a PMC? Was it an intelligence agency? Who knows? But
probably an intelligence agency.
Do you have a theory on who did?
I think the Brits did it.
Really? Because we think the Americans did it.
I don't think we're that competent, Mike. I'm going to be honest with you. Why do you think it's the Brits?
Because Britain has always taken, if you look back 200 years of history, Britain has always taken the side of the dominant. They've taken the opposite side of the dominant land power in Europe.
Yes. Well, there's been British policy for hundreds of years, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So why not now?
But that doesn't mean they did it.
Clip. Well, look, Germany has just gone so completely astray politically that it's. I hope they come back.
Come back where?
There's different ways Germany can come back. So,
you should ask him what he means actually right now, Constantine, because I think he might mean the one that you don't think he means.
Is the reason many think the Americans did it is that it's in America's economic interest for Europeans to get their gas from America.
I cannot see anyone in the Biden administration having the balls to authorize that.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad I asked anyway.
Yeah. And just looking.
And to be clear, I haven't had a clearance and I have no inside knowledge of it all.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
no inside knowledge.
Yeah. Glad we got those disclaimers out there, Eric. But it's a very interesting world now from a military perspective. Mm. And we've had many guests on the show, some of whom have got a military background, and many of them have said this is the most fraught that the world has been in a long period of time. Do you buy into that, or do you think?
Yes. The acceleration of precision drone technology is the biggest pendulum swing in military change, really, since Genghis Khan put...
Genghis Khan.
And we know what that cost, right? I mean, he created the largest empire the world has ever seen from the Pacific coast to Hungary. Because now you can stand up in the saddle and fire your bow at a high rate of speed. So it accelerated war from walking into battle to now riding into battle. So as they rolled across Asia, he had 150,000 men.
I'm sorry, what? Wouldn't you maybe say that it's like the biggest change in warfare since aircraft started being used or something?
With an extra 300,000 horses. So each man had 3 horses in cycle, so they could just move hundreds of miles a day and deliver vast volumes of firepower. And after they conquered some stuff in China, he adapted siege works and battering rams and all that stuff so he could take on fortified cities as well. It was incredible. And the amount of cheap precision weaponry now is making those kind of black swan events not just possible, but likely. I mean, look at what happened in Syria just a few weeks ago. the entire Syrian Arab army was wiped. That was a combination of small drones, Turkish intelligence, Turkish special operations, kind of hiding behind some. That was not indigenous. That was the Turks taking out Assad.
So that must mean that every country now has seen what's happening, particularly with the technology described, and they're preparing, if not literally, but they're certainly preparing mentally for war because everything is more unstable.
I would say most militaries are too conservative in the wrong sense of the word. They're too slow, and I would say not fully aware of just how volatile the change is.
Because we had Douglas Murray on, and he was talking about
the Great Replacement, probably.
How the IDF weren't prepared for the attack from Hamas, which completely bears out what you're saying, in that there was a complacency.
Correct. They assumed that their SIGINT, listening to everything that was going on in Gaza, and they thought, nothing's happening. So what did Hamas do?
Well, it's called a surprise attack.
They had all their meetings face to face and didn't send. They kept on their normal activity, so there'd be no change, and they went to face meetings to completely uncollectible. And on the morning of October 7th,
well, that's what happens when you can't get any human intelligence. What happens when you can't infiltrate organizations, when you can't spy on people. Word gets around, baby.
They used small drones with grenades and dropped it on the very expensive watchtowers with the cameras and the remote weapon stations, and they took them out. They, when we talk about hardware and hardware, there was the head of the military, the Shabak, the Mossad met at 2 a.m. the morning of October 7th because there was noise in the system. They knew there was something happening, but they weren't sure what. And it was also a religious holiday. Almost, 50 years to from Yom Kippur. So an anniversary of Yom Kippur holiday. They met, didn't decide much. They said, okay, let's meet again at 8 a.m., which was 2 hours after the attack happened. The only guy that did something was the head of the Shabak, and he sent a couple of 12-man teams to the south. Not sure what to do, just like go and be ready. If the military had said, hey, wake all the troops up and at least make them go to sleep with their guns, or...
Wake all the troops up. Make them fucking go. Get the fuck out of here. Shut the fuck up, dude. Oh, man. This is such a weird fucking... This is all a fucking movie. Like a Tom Clancy book.
Put them on extra guard stations. Those bases would not have been overrun. Very different outcome. But the Shabak guy that sent the 12-man teams, one of them, on the north end of Gaza, there's a road that goes north to a city called Ashkelon, which is like 300,000 people. 12-man team occupied a traffic circle, and they fought to the last man. Okay, 11 of the 12 were killed, killing hundreds of Hamas guys who were trying to get to Ashkelon. Because imagine
this sounds like a legend.
Or 100 Hamas dudes made it to Ashkelon, they would have the number killed on October 7th would have been 4 or 5 times that amount. So individual valor, when the game is on, still matters as much or more than technology. So, and again, they were not prepared for drones as much as the IDF could shoot down incoming missiles, shoot down incoming rockets with Iron Dome. They had a hell of a time with small drones.
Not so much that they're shooting it down. It's that these are crudely fucking. These are like crude and outdated rockets that sometimes just land in the middle of fucking nowhere. There's not like a high number of them getting shot down.
Coming from Hezbollah in the north, 50% of those were getting through and smashing targets. And again, military bureaucracy, very slow to adapt versus private individual initiative. I have a friend there, and he just said, to hell with it, I'm going to solve this problem. He went and dragged out of the Israeli Air Force Museum an M113 with an M61 Vulcan cannon. Now it's a 6-barrel 20.
So this guy stole some shit from a museum and is like, I'm gonna go fucking fight the terrorists. Fucking fuck out of here.
Takes it to his shop.
This is some shit from a movie. Did he look like Mel Gibson?
Battery on it. puts a new fire control system on it and makes it a fully automated anti-drone system, which is still sitting on post right along the coast, shooting down incoming Hezbollah drones. And he did it in like 4 weeks. Extraordinary. It was kind of the same kind of innovation you saw in Ukraine of adapting toy drones or recreational drones with small explosives. He did the same thing with an automated fire control system. So the more
What the fuck is
if you have smart
bullshit?
people and you turn them loose, they're gonna have some amazing creativity.
He might not be lying, but I think his friend is fucking bullshitting him.
Well, it sounds like what you're really telling us is the entire technological and AI revolution that everyone's banging on about generally is happening in the military very rapidly as well.
yeah.
But the thing that, if you don't mind me asking this, that interests me, since we mentioned Israel, you're a guy who's an expert in combat and military and all of that. What do you make of the claims that Israel is committing genocide, that this has been deliberate targeting of civilians, the casualties are...
These are facts. I'm sorry, at this point, these are facts. There's like a lot of apartment buildings that used to be. They're like, oh, there's Hamas in there. And it's like, well, I don't know what that means. What do you mean there's Hamas in there?
charts, etc. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I went there 3 weeks after October 7. And I cannot claim to be any combat expert.
Okay.
I read a lot of military history. But I also...
Ooh, I bet there's a lot of... He probably reads... He probably doesn't read like academic books about military history. He probably reads like... the fucking kind of books that are like the functional equivalent of the History Channel, right?
understand military bureaucracies pretty well. And I understand, and look, I said this with great love to my Israeli friends. I've known a lot of Jewish financiers of oil and gas projects. I've never met a Jewish roughneck. Okay, the guy that's out there working the rig. So knowing that the IDF
that's a little anti-Semitic.
Pause from
Like fucking, what do you mean? There's Jewish people out there working a fucking manual labor job? Shut the fuck up! You think they're all bankers and lawyers? Get the fuck out of here.
They're not going to have a lot of current experience in running rigs or what the current state of technology is of directional drilling. And so I brought them the very best in Texas. The guy who does all the drilling for SpaceX and for Exxon. Okay, pretty sophisticated customer.
What is SpaceX drilling for?
Because I think the IDF walked into the exact fight that Hamas wanted to have, which was a conventional fight in Gaza. And Hamas prepared for that by building, 500 kilometers of tunnels underneath, which has been a huge...
I don't know if this is true. No matter what, like, eventually it comes down to bad people doing bad things in tunnels, it seems like. It doesn't matter what night of the week it is, right? It could be, fucking, we probably covered that shit on Down Ballot, or like on last night, maybe on... during public comment, right? There might have been somebody talking about the tunnels. Oh, on Thursday during the Satanic Panic show, we do, fuck yeah, people talking about the tunnels. On Conspiracy Bingo, fuck yeah, we make fun of a whole ass guy who thinks there's tunnels under the Getty. Like, yeah, there's people who think their Scientology is trafficking children via a tunnel system. Like, it always comes down to those bad people who probably have the wrong religion or worship the Dark Lord or whatever are doing shit in tunnels. And I'm just like highly skeptical of all of these kinds of claims.
Huge problem for the IDF. And so I said, let's bring great drilling technology and just flood the hell out of everything. Everything below grade is getting flooded with seawater. You can say, well, you're going to damage the aquifer. That's easier to fix than 20,000, whatever the tens of thousands of civilian casualties that would have been sustained or deaths. And so drilling rig that can drill a pilot hole that big with a cutter that big. So we had turbine-driven pumps, 12,000 horsepower that could deliver 60,000 gallons a minute to literally turn everything underground soaking. Why does that matter?
Yeah, there could be a way in which does he mean, is there a subway? Like if you remember in Ukraine, when the war first started, a lot of people that smartly so were like, I'm going to the subway station. At least it's underground. Well, start flooding that shit with water, and now you're killing all those people. I don't know. We don't know. Are the tunnels? If the tunnels exist to the extent that he says they do, which I'm skeptical of. But there's going to be civilians hiding out down there if you're bombing. If they know about a tunnel, now you're pumping it full of water.
Would have taken away the enemy's ability to maneuver. They can't run, hide, pop up somewhere else. All their underground weapons caches would have been destroyed, and it would have forced all the hostages to the surface. Because Hamas does not want dead hostages. They can't negotiate with those. Mm-hmm. And so
does this guy not understand like what kind of PR it would be for anybody to be like, well, we had your hostages. We took hostages. You have hostages of ours. We had our hostages underground because you were bombing us, and then you just flooded everything underground, and now your hostages are dead. You killed them. You killed them because we couldn't very well leave them in the path of all your fucking bombs.
I think, look, there's some set of the IDF that just wanted to kill as many people as possible as a punitive raid.
There are people high up in the government of Israel who went on TV and said they wanted to do that. Excuse the fuck out of you.
But I think it's set back. I think the war has set back the image of Israel in a lot of parts of the world quite badly by how that.
I think like probably the whole world, actually, if we're being honest, just the whole fucking world.
By giving Hamas the fight that they wanted to have, I wanted to take away Hamas's ability to use tunnels without the drama of explosives. Because who can complain as much about water?
So why didn't they do that?
Senior bureaucratic decision making. Actually, the people,
maybe it wasn't fucking viable. Maybe like maybe it wasn't viable. Maybe they know that maybe they know that there's not that many tunnels. Like maybe it takes a long time to fucking drill that far. Maybe if you have to get kind of close to drill like that, and maybe they were like, well, that's great until somebody fucking blows up your fucking drill, you stupid motherfucker.
And the Yachalom, the combat unit guys, the ones that were close to the field, they were all about doing it because they saw the merit. Versus it's the classic, the closest you are to the flagpole and the senior leadership, the more divorced you are from reality. And sadly, they were listening to other idiots in the Pentagon that said, yeah, don't do that. I think...
well, yeah, somebody's just going to blow up your fancy drill, friend. You're like, oh, they seem to be drilling something. This can't be good. Well, we should blow that up.
Bad look for the IDF to have to trade back, to get hostages back 15 months after October 7, and to see a battalion of Hamas guys with their headbands doing the happy dance, because for them to survive is a win for them, because there is still thousands of Hamas fighters.
I mean, yes, if you thought you were going to die a horrific death, and you mean Hamas guys in the headbands, shut the fuck up. Everybody, like, people will be wearing headdresses there. It's because a lot of it's to help you with the heat. Some of it's religious garb. But those people they're not just all Hamas because they're wearing a headdress that your dumbass associates with Hamas. Get the fuck out of here.
That's a problem that has not been dealt with yet.
But other than that, I appreciate your idea. Sounds really good to me as a non-expert. That sounds like a great idea. But given that the decision was made not to do that, do you think the way that Israel has prosecuted this war has been...
I think it's... fighting in urban areas is the most difficult. Mm-hmm. And it's even...
But that's not what they're not like going door to door. They're bombing. They're blowing it up. They're using air superiority. I'm not saying they're not sending any people in, but they're just mostly just bombing it using missiles.
Even more difficult when there's civilian refugees living there, and then you're trying to strike targets, and you have an enemy that's actively living and hiding and even using humans for shields.
So this is also like the bigger problem with an insurgency is maybe before you started bombing, some of these people weren't even insurgents or what, because you can't have, there can't be, like there wouldn't be maybe. I mean, this is complicated, but maybe when you start bombing people, you turn people who might have otherwise been considered civilians into insurgents, and the lines get a little blurry because you're blowing up their fucking whole goddamn place. So now everybody's like, well, you know what? I'm gonna kill a motherfucker, because that's I don't know, a foreign country tries to invade my neighborhood in Oakland, guess what? I'm the fucking military now. I'm gonna die in the street probably because I'm old and don't have very good training, but now I'm the fucking military, right? My neighbors are the military. Everybody's the fucking military now because somebody invaded my fucking neighborhood.
Maximize civilian casualties. So it's an impossibly difficult task. Of course, if you're going to fight in urban combat with civilians there's going to be civilian casualties. So Israel is damned if they do and damned if they don't.
Well, no, they could have stopped. I'm sorry. The first day or two, I could be like, all right, this is a response. First week or after 2 weeks, I'm like, ooh, you're doing a revenge. You're doing stop it. You should be, no. You were a nuclear superpower with the backing of the United States. You should not be doing a revenge. And then after 2 weeks, I'm like, oh, I know what you're doing. This isn't really, we didn't even call this revenge either. We have other words for what's happening here.
The need for that level of energetics by making it water instead. I mean, I remember having a early conference call.
Yo, this guy was down there trying to fucking sell him some shit. Dude, this guy was trying to sell, this guy wasn't just like, oh, they could use a water drill. He's like, well, this guy was down there in his capacity as a private military contractor trying to sell him some fucking drill. I think that's what was going on. And they were like, dude, your drill's not, what the fuck are you doing? What do you mean a drill? The fuck?
With their
had extra drills left over from a fucking fracking company that he fucking invested in that went under or something, dude. Fuck.
From their version of DARPA. And Bobby, my lead drilling CEO from Texas. And they said, well, we tried directional drilling 6 years ago. It didn't work. There was clay and it took too long and it wasn't very accurate. And my guy got on the phone and he goes, well, last year I drilled from one side of the Mississippi River to the other. And we had a competition amongst the boys. I was aiming for a stake and I hit the stake. Is that good enough for you? I mean,
yeah, but they don't know if that guy's lying to them.
Across the Mississippi River.
I don't love the fucking IDF. Don't get me wrong. I mean, in case you couldn't tell by what I was saying a minute ago, that doesn't mean they're just going to believe you because you got a slick talking guy with a Texas accent.
It's mud, and he hit it. And so, yeah, it was frustrating. It was frustrating to have.
Also, this was happening. I'm sorry. Was there a insurgent war being fought near the Mississippi River? These things are a little bit easier to do when there's no a bombing campaign happening nearby and stuff like that. This stuff's a lot more easy if there aren't people like, I don't know, trying to fucking sabotage the drill.
Solution. And for the Israeli guys to say, well, we tried drilling and pumping. Yeah, they're pumping water like this, not this. Size matters.
It's the most controversial thing you said all episode, Erik.
Well, we're going to leave this here because we're about an hour and a half into the show or whatever. This is terrifying. I want to be really clear that anybody listening to this who does not know who Erik Prince is needs to just look up Blackwater. I don't care what search engine you use. It's going to, after AI spits you out some fucking garbage that doesn't make any sense about, like maybe even the AI knows who the fuck this guy is. Just look up Blackwater, Iraq. You're going to find some shit. This guy is a war criminal. I am not surprised that Triggernometry had a war criminal on. I suppose that's impressive that the quality maybe is not the right word, but the let's say the ghoul tier that they have access to has I don't know if it's improved or increased or gone higher. I don't know, but I'm just saying that this is not that surprising. For them, this was a good get. For me, I would be tempted to fucking break the law if I were in a room alone with Erik Prince. I would have temptations to do things that are illegal that no one should ever do to anybody else. The guy should be, in prison. The guy should have been tried at The Hague for war crimes. There's no other way about it. Even just a cursory look at what happened. The dude's a fucking war criminal. And I think he's like, oh, well, the people aren't willing to make the tough decisions in the field shit that he was talking. Some of that was just not willing to do war crimes. I think it was like euphemisms for not being willing to do war crimes. So that's the show. I guess we're gonna go into red light. If you're listening on the podcast and you want to hear what comes after this, which everybody should want to hear what comes after this, because the next person, they're gonna be a ghoul, the person we're gonna watch during red light, but ain't gonna be no war criminals, I don't think, during red light. If you want that, you can get it for free by watching live, or $5 a month at eplex.store or patreon.com/echoplex, and it also helps support this project. Also, obviously, you just email me. I'll send you the MP4 or whatever. If you just want the audio, I'll send you the MP3 of it. What kind of dumbass like actually paywalls a single episode of their show, like the after part, for somebody who really wants to check it out? Anyway, I got to change the color of the lights in this room, change the contents of my beverage. We're going to go into the red light portion of the show. Hang out for a minute. This is Boomers by Periscope.